All right. Hey, welcome to X Garage. Got Marcus Pitman on the channel here with us today. How's it going, Marcus?
It's going good, man. How are you?
Good. So, you decided to go at war with Netflix. What kind of brought that on?
Well, I mean, I've had a lot of times where uh, it's been difficult to get monetized making Christian films and doing Christian television and all that sort of thing. And so I had Babies Are Still Murdered Here, and Babies Are Still Murdered Here was on Amazon Prime, and it was actually demonetized from Amazon Prime. And even when it was up there, we were only making maybe $5 a month because Amazon Prime only gives you like a nickel for every like 1,000 people that watch your content. So you weren't making a lot. I mean, a lot of people were watching it because to make $5 a month on that is pretty good. But there wasn't enough to really. I mean, you can't make a living putting films out on Amazon Prime. So, oops, my video dropped out. Sorry.
Yep.
You can't make a living putting stuff out on Amazon Prime, making 5 cents for every 1,000 views, unless you get exclusive deals with Amazon or Netflix or something like that, which is not going to come to for the Christian worldview. They're not going to get those deals, and so.
But they're not wanting movies on anti-abortion propaganda. What's wrong with you?
No, man, imagine that. And so, anyway, that just got me thinking in terms of like what would be a good model for Christians to make money making films, but also not be tied into that sort of pure flicks Hallmark movie style for women. Like what is like what does manly Christian films look like and stuff like that. So that's sort of where lore got started, and made a few calls to some people, some Christians who were in, the business world, and pitched it to them, and they were all in. And so we got started pretty much January of this year is when everything really launched and took off. And I've been doing it full time since then, and we're building it out and already greenlit 2 projects. And yeah, man, it's going really well. So
Cool. Well, I do have one question. Is one of those going to be a sitcom with you and Chris Wineland?
Chris Wineland has an open invitation to make anything he wants on our platform, but he hasn't sent me anything. So maybe one day he'll sit down and get serious about a pitch. So
Yeah. Well, see, you mentioned you wanted to create a space for all the canceled actors. I mean, are you wanting to get canceled yourself? Like, is that just kind of a?
Well, I feel like I've already been canceled. My Twitter account got suspended this week. So for a David and Goliath reference.
Okay.
Which is I said something like Laura's going to chop the heads off the uncircumcised Philistines.
Oh, I saw that one. I liked that.
And then that got me canceled, and then for violence, and and so yeah. So I feel like, if the founders are cancel proof, then the artists will be. So, if they can't cancel us for some strange comment we made 10 years ago when we were in a cage stage or something like that, then they're not going to be able to cancel any of our artists. So
the good old cage stage. Love it.
Yeah.
So you're a bunch of Christians, but you're not necessarily excluding non-Christians in the
No,
creation
it's a for-profit business that's geared for everybody. Obviously there is no neutrality.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've seen that very clearly with Netflix, putting in their, trans actors in every show, or putting in a gay actor in every show, and requiring that the creators do it too. They have blasphemy laws. They have certain specific laws that they follow, and so do we. My belief, though, is that our laws that we have actually provide more freedom and create better art. So it's going to be cool to sort of see that tested out and fleshed out in the real world. So I'm excited to see that happen.
Amen to that, man. Cool. So should I expect to be offended by your content? Is that kind of
Yeah, I think Christians are going to be offended by the content, especially evangelical culture, I think,
hmm
because I think one of the things PureFlix and the Christian music industry too, it's not exclusive. The mainstream Christian art, I guess you could call it big Christian art, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
They've sort of done a really good job in molding Christian art in such a way that it's distinct from the world's art, the secular art, but they haven't made it's not a good distinction.
Yeah.
So it's just like, this is what K-Love praise music sounds like. This is what a Christian film looks like.
It's kind of
And
flabby.
so I think a lot of people are expecting that. Christian hip hop really messed up that all the work they put into keeping those genres separate, Christian music separate from country music. They put a lot of time and money into making sure that there were clear boundaries. And then when Christian hip hop came on the scene, it messed everybody up because people were calling into K-Love asking to play Lecrae. And K-Love's like, well, that's not praise music. And they're like, well, where do I listen to Lecrae?
Yeah.
And so K-Love had to go and start like the Air One radio stations that play like, the Toby Mac and the Lecrae and the Reach Records stuff. And so,
Right.
it was a big shift, and the democratization of the internet is what really allowed for that to happen. There weren't any rules on what Lecrae could do when he put his music on iTunes.
Cool.
And so we think the same thing is going to happen with Christian films and television shows because of the internet. I think the time is right, but I don't think everybody's going to accept it, especially as like, what does adult Christian television look like, right? Like what's a show that only you and your wife should watch together? That's not sinful, but it's not for kids. Like that's sort of the thing we've defined as like, well, Christian content is only for, any kid can watch it. But that's not how people work in the real world. And that's not how, there's Christian books you don't let your kid read, right? Like there's books on marriage and stuff like that you don't let your kid read. And so there's same thing should be true for like Christian television entertainment. And
I mean, like your comment on David, right? I mean, it's not like the biblical narrative isn't full of graphic content.
Right. Yeah. I mean, sin is real, sin is graphic, those sort of things. There's all sorts of sort of stuff that men would watch that a woman wouldn't watch. So there's stuff that women watch that a man won't watch. And so the Christian movies are largely based on the fact that they knew that they were going to get the movies in the theater for a few weeks and it wouldn't be that long in the theater. And so what came as a result of the Christian movies being in the theater for such a short run is that they realized, well, we have to sell the DVDs. Well, how do we sell the DVDs? Well, we sell them at Lifeway bookstores and Christian bookstores. Who are the main consumers of Christian bookstores? Well, it's soccer moms, right? So Southern Baptist soccer moms. So suddenly all the movies that were played in the theater were really only for 35-year-old soccer moms. And because they knew they could get them to buy them at the bookstore when they saw them. And so that is a very small niche. But it's also very profitable for them. So I mean, like it worked. Like it wasn't a bad business decision, but it didn't create any sort of freedom in the film economy for the Christians to really sort of take hold and take captive. But this is why, we got VeggieTales from this. We got all these sort of Christian productions that a lot of us look back on with fondness as a kid growing up. But a lot of that is great when we were kids because our mom would buy it for us. But now that we're adult men, it's like, well, where's our adult Simpsons style Christian cartoon series? Like, what does
Like,
that look like in a Christian world?
I
What
mean, the
does Rick and
Babylon
Morty
Bee
look like?
has those little
Of course.
cartoons. I want to see a 30-minute
Yeah.
version of
Yeah.
that.
I would be great. Yeah. Yeah. They're welcome anytime. So,
I'll give him a
so
call. Yeah.
yeah. So, but those are the sort of things like, I watch Rick and Morty.
It's a good
It's not a
show.
Christian, it's not a Christian show by any stretch of the imagination. It actually is nihilistic in everything it is.
I would say that Rick
But
is probably one of the most consistent atheists in television.
well, see, isn't that the interesting thing, right? So you have Dan Harmon trying to make this nihilistic cartoon show, but yet he's trying to find out if Rick like has any value, if there's anything valuable in the world, and they always go back to the family, right? And like he's always, but even that family isn't really valuable to Rick.
Yep.
At least the struggle. I mean, like which version of the family, right?
Wasn't it
So
that ending in I think it was season 1 where he was like, "Oh God, please don't let me die. Please don't let me die." Then he lives and he's like, "Haha, F you, God," or something like
yeah,
that.
right. That's right.
Terrible,
So
but
so even Rick and Morty, like Rick and Morty is not a Christian TV show. It's not done from a Christian worldview, but that story could be done by a Christian. Like that comic could be done. It would look different, but I think a lot of the some of that stuff would still be in there, even the blasphemies. If you want to have, how does a Christian make an atheist that really hates God? Right. So, Doug Wilson talks about that too, in the sense of like, well, can you blaspheme in literature or your book you're writing? And he goes, well, if the character is, if it's really required of the character, then it can be, because it's not in that sense. When you're writing a character that's blaspheming God, you're not blaspheming God, because you're actually using God's name in a way that brings glory and honor to them. Like, and it's just in the same way the prophets wrote about people blaspheming God, right? So it sounds crazy, but all that to say is like there's a much more broader spectrum of Christian content than we can imagine, and that's going to offend evangelicals when they see it. But the Christians who think critically when they look at art and movies and stuff like that, I think they're really gonna embrace it and be like, wow, finally.
Actually, Stephen King, I read his book on writing, and he mentioned something similar. Not that he's a Christian by any stretch of the imagination, but he was saying that if you're writing a character, don't lie for the sake of the women's Bible study. If you have a character that really would swear, you have to let him swear. You're lying.
Right. Yeah.
I think that's a fair assessment. I think Doug Wilson would probably agree with that.
Yeah.
Cool. So, and then I have a question in terms of what are you looking for if somebody is listening to this, and they want to get involved artistically? What is the level of production that you're looking for? How does that even work with what you guys have set up?
So one of the things we're finding is Hollywood is a massive organization, sort of like the church. There's different body parts that do different things, right? There's people who build sets. There's people that compose music. There's people that just do lighting, right? Like, so all those sort of things, there's all these gifts and talents. And so it's easy to make the platform and say, well, only the directors are involved. But then what we found was that, I mean, that was originally the idea, but what we found was that, oh man, there's a lot of, people that work in Hollywood that aren't just the directors and the actors, right? So what we're doing is, if you go to lore.tv, there's a content creator sign up or a creator sign up, and you can actually put on that list like what you do and some link to your work. And I think what we'll probably have at some point is some sort of database to really connect artists. So when a project is funded, they'll get access to the names of people that they might be able to get to go and work with them on projects. So that's sort of, Netflix does that. That's not out of the ordinary. If you're working on a project for Netflix, they have databases and lists of people that they've approved that can help make your project. So it's not really out of the ordinary in the industry. So that's like that's really helpful. So we're
Yeah.
gonna do that too. So yeah, everybody will be able to benefit from what Laura's doing. So
Cool. And then you are sending out emails about the kind of investors that you're looking for. What are you looking for right now?
yeah, so the government makes it really difficult and tricky to get investors. So it's not like, it would be nice if you could just give me money and I go, okay, great, you got this, whatever part of the company or however we do it, right? But the government has a lot of regulations and requirements, and a lot of those regulations and requirements are lifted if the investment is large enough, which is weird because you would think the smaller investments would get like the less, but it doesn't work that way. So right now, the government considers a qualified and an accredited investor as someone who has $1 million in assets outside of his home plus 50,000 to invest. So I think that's how it works. There's some give way there, I believe, in a lot of that. And but yeah, so that's essentially how the government looks at it. But ultimately, we are forming that list of investors, and we're forming the list of investors who might want to help with crowdfunding or might want to help fund a film or a project that we're working on, which wouldn't be the company as a whole, but maybe more of along those lines. So if you go to lore.tv, you can sign up as an investor there. I mean, that's really important because, I know like Gab's been talking about it, like with Parler. Parler was Parler was they were they were started by Robert Mercer's, who is he's like a right-wing version of George Soros, right? And so he started Parler with lots of money and no technological background, and he fired the CEO that started the company just like a few weeks ago. And so like that guy, John Matsky, I think, came in and started Parler. The Mercers came in and gave him like more money than he could ever imagine. And then they started, Parler got really popular and whatnot. And then when Parler got shut down, he comes in, and because he gave so much money, he just fired the CEO that started the company, and he lost control of the whole company. So there's always that worry of like, well, we need money to start the business, but we don't want we don't want people like hedge funds and stuff to come in and suddenly we're a Marxist company again.
Right.
Right. So like that's not what we want. So what we really need is Christians with a pretty decent and pretty strong backbone and understanding. But if you try to convince Christians to invest that quickly into like a Christian business or something, so it's a lot more difficult because of where they value their money. They value their money in abortion organizations and missionary organizations and all these other things. So teaching Christians, no, your money is just as valuable in a Christian business and building infrastructure as it is in a missionary organization or fighting abortion, like, because they're all part of the same thing. There's going to be several abortion related projects on lore, right? So that is essentially an abortion. I mean, of course we're going to talk about that. Yep. But the difference is you actually get an actual return on your investment in addition to the eternal one with a business. So there's some value there too.
Cool. So how can we help you cancel Hollywood?
Yeah, so just go to Lore TV and sign up on the email list, and you can do it there. Just sign up as an investor if you just want information and to be alerted to important updates and stuff. You can sign up there and then be an investor or creator. So streamer, investor, or creator, whatever you decide. So
awesome. And then how can we pray for you?
Yeah, man, just pray that God sends us the venture capital that we need, that we can find godly men with a backbone who want to fight with us and aren't cowards. That's important. And then also pray that that God gives our team wisdom in our day-to-day decisions and our time, that we use that as good as we can. So
awesome. Cool. Hey, well, thank you so much, Marcus, for coming on and talking with us for a little bit. I'm super excited to see what you guys are doing and what we're going to see in the future.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure. Where's the